All right. Well, welcome back to the We Shall Not Sleep podcast. Thank you all for joining us this week. Last week, wow, I don't know. That was a heavy week for a lot of us Americans. A lot of death, a lot of hatred, a celebration of evil. The banality of evil becoming more commonplace. The inability to speak evil. The inability to think multiple thoughts simultaneously. Never ceases to surprise me in a way because of how far us church leaders have gone in educating our parishioners and being willing to, at the same time, hold the truth of the gospel above everything else and speak against this highly reactive and emotional society. You see, it is my belief that highly emotional people are going to be more spiritually unstable. Emotions are up and down all over the place. People say don't let yourself be ruled by your emotions. I'm sure if someone says somebody's highly emotional, what they tend to mean is that their actions reflect their emotions at all times. Now you have people that repress their emotions because they have been shamed in their life for having them. And you have people who have no boundaries whatsoever, and if they're upset that day, everyone's going to know they're upset. No self-control. And there are others who appear very stoic, very reserved, but on the inside they're dying. And yet somewhere in the middle is being able to, if you're frustrated, if you're angry, if you're happy, if you're joyful, to be able to express those in a healthy manner while also not allowing them to dictate every action. Every person is emotional. Some people are very good at hiding them. Others just wear their emotions on their sleeve, as we talk about. I just want to preface this because people who lean into their emotions, the things that they don't understand, things that rile them up, when they make big decisions, think about counseling somebody through grief and they think they should move or they should make a massive purchase right after the loss of somebody, like a loved one. And usually the family will say that don't make any big purchases for 6 months. Like, deal with your emotions, stay in the grieve, and then make some decisions. And yet we go through our days making decisions all the time that impact others, impact generations, and depending on whether your decision is to move your family, change education systems, leave the church, change churches, or completely go against, stay in the church but maybe ignore some Bible passages. Somebody who maybe you don't trust to be around because you have no idea, you almost have to lick your finger and get an idea where the wind is at, stepping on eggshells, like, oh, we got to get somebody's temperature today. We have no idea what mood they're in. Does that sound like healthy people? And we reward that because I think the erosion of institutional trust in this country, both from the private and public and religious, basically teaches people, and especially on social media, when you start questioning what is real, what isn't, the influx of AI, everyone is questioning what is real, what is truth. Now, truth is a very interesting thing in a postmodern society that's now moved to a post-truth society, is that the truth might be knowable, but then who cares? And so what do you worship? Your emotions. You worship what you really can depend on. You might not like that you feel that way, but gosh darn it, you know it to be true. You know when you're sad. You know when you're angry. You know when you're happy. There you go. It's the worship of the self. That's all it is. And this ties into the maturity level and the lack of maturity amongst believers. And it goes to, and it ties into my devotion I read every day, My Utmost for His Highest, which is from Oswald Chambers. For September 17th, his devotional day is, What's the Good of Temptation? And he quotes, 1 Corinthians 10:13, there hath no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man. So, the temptations that we experience in this life are nothing that the Son of Man has not experienced. And that's where he'll reference the book of Hebrews at the end of this. I want to read it for us. But, Christ comes to show us the way. God steps out of heaven, puts on flesh, limits himself, participates with his creation on the most intimate level by becoming a part of his creation. He did not limit himself pain. He went through all the inconveniences of being human, as far as those emotions and physical pain and discomfort. And yet, as the book of Hebrews, the highly Christological book, it teaches us that because he has also been tempted, we also can experience freedom from that temptation. Jesus opened himself up to everything that we would also experience, and he showed us the way in which to live in the midst of that. And therefore, no temptation that he has experienced are we somehow subjected to for the first time. Remember, the devil offered Jesus the entire world. Have any of us been offered the entire world in its entire domain? No. So, what could be more pernicious of a temptation than that? Saying, I'm going to give you everything. And you say, when Satan's like, all you need to do is bow down and worship me, and I will give you all of this. Think about what people crave power for. Money, sex, and the dominion, the owning of people. Those are like basically the three main motives. That power that comes with that. So you look at this and you see like King David, for example. He was respected by everyone up until Bathsheba, but he could have anyone he wanted. He could do anything, had riches, had political power, spiritual favor. He had every concubine that his eye wanted, but then he went after a woman that was married, because the eye wandering, it's the eyes are never satisfied, as Proverbs teaches us. So these are the temptations that we study in Scripture. And yet Jesus came, lived amongst us, and did not give in to temptation. And this is what Oswald Chamber has to talk about temptation and what it reveals about us. In the same way, how do we live emotionally? How are we most fragile? It reveals how we've been wounded. It reveals our biggest insecurities. The word temptation has come down in the world. We are apt to use it wrongly. Temptation is not sin. It is the thing we are bound to meet if we are men. Not to be tempted would be to be beneath contempt. Many of us, however, suffer from temptations from which we have no business to suffer, simply because we have refused to let God lift us to a higher plane where we would face temptations of another order. A man's disposition on the inside, what he possesses in his personality, determines what he is tempted by on the outside. Who are you on the inside? We'll be tempted by what we are on the outside. See, Satan can't read our minds. This is me adding some commentary here. Satan does not have the power to read minds. He's not omniscient. But what he is that he knows all of human history. Okay? He's smarter than the collective knowledge of humanity. And he knows what trips us up. And then he also has the benefit, with his spies everywhere, the benefit of knowing what trips us up. Especially those who are a threat to his kingdom, such as like us pastors, us Christians, hopefully. And so he knows, based on our past physical outwardness sin, how to tempt us. And why are we tempted by those things and given the most? Because we are tempted on the inside for those things. It's that simple. That's what Oswald's getting here. He goes on. The temptation fits the nature of the one tempted and reveals the possibilities of the nature. Every man has the setting of his own temptation, and the temptation will come along the line of the ruling disposition. Like, I'm not tempted by alcohol. If I was tempted by alcohol, you know what I'd be doing? Probably getting blackout drunk every night. But I'm not. It's just not me. It's never been appealing. In 31 years and in multiple situations. Same thing with drugs. For me, it was a different drug. It was pornography. The lust of the eyes. He goes on, temptation is a suggested shortcut to the realization of the highest at which I aim. Not towards what I understand is evil, but towards what I understand is good. Temptation is something that completely baffles me for a while. I do not know whether the thing is right or wrong. Temptation yielded to is lust deified, and is proof that it was timidity that prevented the sin before. Yeah. Temptation yielded to is lust deified. Lust of whatever. The eyes, the flesh, greed, envy, power. What tempts people? The pursuit of peace. For a lot of pornography, or that's just like a lack of intimacy, loneliness. And he goes on, temptation is not something we may escape. It is essential to the full-orbed life of a man. Beware lest you think you are tempted as no one else is tempted. What you go through is the common inheritance of the race, not something no one ever went through before. God does not save us from temptations. He secures us in the midst of them, from Hebrews 2:18. God is not the one who tempts, and he allows it. It's a part of the human condition, is what Oswald is really getting at here. It is something all of us go through, and it reveals something inwardly of something that we are technically lusting after. What tempts you and I? And in these particular cases, these injustices, we are tempted out of the aim and quest for justice to cry out and fix it ourselves. And that's why last week I in particular was like, we want to do something. It's like sometimes we don't have to, there's nothing to do anyway. And it's a temptation to the powerlessness. It can make us feel less than. It can cause feelings of confusion and anger, bitterness, a lack of cared for when these injustices happen and the wicked seem to prosper and flourish in the midst of that, and no accountability. Proverbs talks about the fact that sometimes we've casted justice to the ground, and the fruit of it is bitterness. And so therefore, we are tempted in these moments is to deify ourselves, because we don't have time to wait on God. That is a mystical thing. That's a flying spaghetti monster. I don't have the time for that. And if God is all love and everything, he would have known that this would have been bad. And since I am man, or I am my own God, I know what should have happened, or I know what needs to happen now. That's the temptation, to have to always do something and have a response. Why can't we just mourn evil and nothing else? Why do we have to have a human solution to human problems? Why can't we all be collectively sad? What is preventing us from praying and calling out to God wherever you are on your aisle and saying, I mourn this. Lord, forgive them, for they know not what they do. There is nothing else that needs to be said or done. Why don't we just sit in it for a while, and maybe God will tell us something, versus I know what I would do, or I know what should be done. The only thing that I'm doing there is we need to reach out to God and ask him for wisdom, and we need to deal with our emotions. We need to own them, and we need to be big boys and girls as God's children. We need to have a serious conversation on how we, in therapy and accountability and rebuke, how we approach one another as Christians. There is no solution that's going to work if it is made up in our own heads. If the human problem comes from a human solution, or the human solution arises, it is going to fall so short, and people are just going to be even more angrier and angrier. I am sick and tired of the church not doing its job. That's why I started this podcast. We need to have these difficult conversations. It's about time that we start realizing that the way forward has nothing to do with what I or you are going to do about it. Submitting ourselves, therefore, to God. Doing what I read last week from James 4. Draw near to God, draw near to you. Actively resist the devil, he will flee from you. What else needs to be said? May God bless you. May God keep you.